The Praetorian Guard, Chapter 23, Mission Orders and Farewells. The atmosphere in the shadows of the night headquarters was charged with anticipation as John and his team gathered in the tactical briefing room. The dim lighting cast long shadows across the faces of the operatives, each one hardened by experience and prepared for whatever lay ahead. John stood among them, his eyes scanning the room, taking in the determination etched on the faces of his comrades. Sarah entered the room, her step steady, her presence commanding immediate attention. She held a datapad in her hand, her expression serious yet focused. She knew this mission was going to be one of their most critical yet, and failure was not an option. "All right, team," Sarah began, her voice cutting through the murmur of conversation. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this. We're heading into a dangerous situation, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The Glauber family's conspiracy has deeper roots than we initially thought, and it involves a plot against Duke Arkin's territories. Our objective is twofold." She paused, her eyes meeting each of theirs as she continued. "First, we will escort Princess Lana safely back to her home in Elvoria. We'll be disguised as members of the diplomatic corps to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. This will allow us to move freely without alerting any potential spies in the region." John nodded, his jaw tightening slightly as he listened. He knew that disguises and secrecy were second nature to the shadows, but this mission had a personal angle because of Lana's involvement. "Second," Sarah continued, "our primary mission is to identify and eliminate the traitor within Duke Arkin's family, the one who's been conspiring with the Glauber family and feeding information to the pirates in the DJ-450 sector. We need to flush them out before they can spark a rebellion and destabilize the Duke's rule." Lieutenant Celine, a sharp-eyed infiltration specialist, raised her hand slightly. "What's our directive if we do find this traitor, Sarah? Do we engage or observe?" Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly, her expression unwavering. "If you can bring the traitor in without compromising our cover, do it. But if they pose an immediate threat or risk to the mission, you have clearance to neutralize the target. This is about protecting the Duke and his territories, whatever it takes." Mark, ever the weapons expert, grinned and adjusted his plasma rifle. "Got it, Commander. So, we go in as diplomats, but stay ready to act like the shadows we are when things go sideways." "Exactly," Sarah said, nodding in agreement. "We need to be invisible but deadly if necessary. Remember, our success relies on subtlety and precision. If the Glaubers catch even a hint that we're onto them, they'll shift their plans faster than we can react." Sun, who rarely spoke but whose eyes always seemed to see everything, simply nodded in silent agreement, ready for whatever the mission demanded. "All clear?" Sarah asked, looking at each member of her team in turn. The team nodded, their resolve as solid as ever. John caught Sarah's eye and gave her a brief nod. He knew this mission was going to be intense, but he also knew they were prepared for it. They'd been through worse, and they'd come out on top. "Good," Sarah said, a hint of a smile creeping into her serious demeanor. "Dismissed. Get some rest if you can. We meet at dawn to depart for Elvorian territory." Later that evening, John returned to his apartment, knowing he had a difficult conversation ahead. As he entered, he was greeted by the soft glow of the evening lights filtering through the windows. He pulled out his comm device, hesitated for a moment, and then called Kara. She picked up almost immediately, her face appearing on the screen with a warm smile that softened when she saw his expression. "Hey, John," Kara said, her smile faltering slightly as she read the tension on his face. "Everything okay?" "Hey, Kara," John replied, his voice gentle but tinged with regret. "I just wanted to call and let you know. I'm heading out on another mission. It's going to be a while before I'm back, and I'm not sure how long I'll be gone." Kara's face fell slightly, and she tried to mask her disappointment. "Another mission already? You just got back. Can you at least tell me where you're going?" John shook his head, the frustration of having to keep secrets from her evident in his eyes. "I wish I could, Kara. I really do. But this mission is classified. One of those don't ask, don't tell situations. Just know that it's important, and I'm doing everything I can to keep things stable." Kara took a deep breath, trying to smile despite the worry in her eyes. "I understand, John. I do. I just hate that this job keeps taking you away. I wish we could have more time together, without you always having to rush off to save the Empire." John reached out, his hand brushing against the screen as if trying to close the distance between them. I know, Kara. And believe me, I hate leaving you like this. But when this is all over, I promise I'll make it up to you. I'll come back, and we'll have that time we've been missing." Kara's smile returned, softer this time, filled with a quiet strength that John had always admired in her. "Just promise me one thing, John. Promise me you'll be careful out there, and that you'll come back to me no matter what." John nodded, his voice steady as he replied, "I promise, Kara. I'll come back. I always do." They shared a moment of silence, their eyes locked on each other, the weight of unspoken words between them. John knew this mission would take him far from Kara, but he also knew that his love for her was one of the things that drove him to protect the Empire, to keep it safe for the people he cared about. The next morning, the team assembled at the diplomatic hangar where the sleek vessel awaited its passengers. The ship stood ready, its engines humming quietly in the background, the royal crest of Elvoria subtly embossed on its side. Princess Lana arrived in full diplomatic attire, her regal demeanor unwavering as she approached the team. John and his squad stood at attention as Lana approached. She gave them a composed nod, a small smile playing on her lips when her eyes met. "Jones, thank you all for your service and for taking on this mission to escort me safely back home," Lana said, her voice filled with a mix of gratitude and determination. "I know you have your orders beyond just protecting me, and I trust you'll succeed." John gave her a reassuring smile. "You're in good hands, Lana. We'll make sure you get back to Elvoria safely, and once we're there, we'll deal with the traitor in your father's court." Lana's gaze softened as she looked at John, the weight of their shared history and the mission ahead settling between them. "I know you will, John. And for what it's worth, I'm glad it's you leading this team. You've always been someone I could trust." Sarah gave the signal, and the team moved to board the ship, each member taking their position. As the engines roared to life, the ship lifted off from the hangar, its sleek form cutting through the early morning sky, heading toward the distant stars of Elvorian territory. John watched the city of Nova Lux disappear below them, his thoughts drifting to the people he was leaving behind, Kara, waiting for his return, and the friends and allies who depended on him. He knew that this mission would test their skills, their loyalty, and their resolve. The diplomatic ship glided smoothly through the black of space, its engines humming quietly as it cut through the stars on its way to Elvoria. Inside the ship, the air was tense but focused. John stood near the main cabin, looking out at the endless void, lost in thought about the mission ahead. The stakes were high, and he knew that every move they made had to be calculated and precise. Sarah approached him, her expression serious and her voice low, so only John could hear. "John, I need to talk to you before we land," she said, signaling him to follow her into a quieter corner of the ship. John nodded and followed, already guessing what the conversation was about. Once they were out of earshot of the rest of the team, Sarah turned to face him, her eyes steady and calm. "John, the situation in Elvoria is more volatile than we originally thought. The Glover family's influence runs deep, and they've placed agents within Duke Arkin's court. There are whispers that they're ready to make a move at any moment, and they won't hesitate to strike against the Duke, or anyone who stands in their way." John's expression hardened, his jaw clenched as he listened. "I figured as much. So, what's the plan once we get there?" Sarah took a deep breath and locked eyes with John. "Your role is going to be critical, John. From the moment we touch down, you will act as Princess Lana's personal guard. Your job is to stay by her side, no matter what happens. Protect her at all costs. We need her alive and safe to stabilize Duke Arkin's position and counteract the Glaber's plans." John nodded without hesitation. "Understood. I'll keep her safe. I won't let anything happen to her." "I know you won't," Sarah said, her voice softening just slightly. "Be vigilant, John. We're heading into hostile territory, and the enemy might be closer than we think. There's no telling who we can trust in Duke Arkin's court, and we can't afford any slip-ups." John gave her a small, reassuring smile. "I've got this, Sarah. I'll keep my eyes open. Whatever happens, I'll make sure Lana stays safe." Satisfied with his response, Sarah gave him a firm nod and turned back to the main cabin. John took a moment to collect his thoughts, then headed down the narrow corridor to the private chamber where Princess Lana was resting. As he entered, Lana looked up, her face softening into a smile when she saw him.
"John,"
she said, her voice filled with both relief and something else he couldn't quite place.
"you've come to check on me again."
John gave her a small, respectful nod.
"I'm here to let you know that I'll be acting as your personal guard from this point on, Your Highness. I'll be by your side at all times to ensure your safety."
Lana's smile widened, though there was a hint of worry in her eyes.
"I'm glad it's you, John. I feel safer knowing that you're watching over me."
She hesitated for a moment, her gaze drifting to the window where the stars streaked past.
"I know that things might get complicated once we arrive in Elvoria. My family is strong, but the court is filled with whispers and secrets."
John reached out and gently placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder.
"You're not alone in this, Lana. We'll face whatever comes together. I promise you that I'll do everything in my power to keep you and your family safe."
Lana's eyes met his, and for a moment the weight of the galaxy seemed to lift just a little. She nodded, her expression more resolute.
"Thank you, John. I know I can trust you. I'm ready for whatever lies ahead."
The journey to Elvoria remained uneventful, with the diplomatic ship flanked by 5 powerful cruisers, their presence a clear sign that this was no ordinary visit. The cruisers moved in perfect formation, their shields up and weapons primed, a silent warning to any potential threats. John stayed close to Princess Lana, his senses on high alert, ready for any sign of trouble. As the ship neared Elvoria, the view from the window changed to reveal a breathtaking sight. The Palace of Elvoria loomed on the horizon, a grand structure made of stone and crystal, its towers reaching toward the sky like proud sentinels. The closer they got, the more John could see. Rows upon rows of people gathered outside the palace gates, awaiting the arrival of their princess.
"Looks like they've prepared quite the welcome for you,"
John said to Lana with a small smile, noting the excitement and anticipation in the crowd below.
"Yes,"
Lana replied, her voice tinged with both pride and anxiety.
"The people of Elvoria have been waiting for my return. But there are also those among them who wish me harm. This isn't just a homecoming. It's a test of loyalty for everyone in my father's court."
The ship began its descent, and as it touched down on the palace grounds, the ramp lowered with a soft hiss. Alpha Team was the first to disembark, their movements disciplined and precise. They formed a protective perimeter around the ship, standing at attention, their expressions stern and vigilant. John took a deep breath and adjusted his stance, feeling the weight of his duty settle on his shoulders. The air was thick with expectation as Princess Lana stepped forward. She descended the ramp with grace and dignity, her presence commanding immediate respect from the crowd. The gathered people erupted into cheers, their voices echoing across the courtyard, but Joan's eyes never stopped scanning the faces in the crowd, looking for any hint of danger, any movement that seemed out of place. He knew better than to relax, even for a moment. As Lana approached the gates of the palace, her family stood waiting for her. Duke Arkin, tall and imposing with a regal air, extended his arms to welcome his daughter. Beside him stood other members of the Elvorian nobility, their expressions varying from genuine joy to veiled suspicion. John kept his position at Lana's side, his eyes flicking between the faces of those assembled. He could sense the undercurrents of politics and power plays, the hidden agendas that always seemed to swirl around royal courts. He was there not just to protect the princess, but to find out who among these people might be conspiring with their enemies. Duke Arkin embraced Lana tightly, his voice filled with warmth.
"Welcome home, my daughter. We have missed you dearly."
Lana smiled, though John could see the guarded look in her eyes as she returned her father's embrace.
"It's good to be home, father,"
she said, her voice steady.
"But we have much to discuss."
Duke Arkin gave her a knowing nod, his eyes flicking briefly to John, acknowledging his presence.
"Indeed, we do. We have much to secure and even more to uncover."
As the gates of the palace opened to welcome them inside, John felt a shift in the atmosphere.